Balaji. How about over at TSA? TSA, obviously an operating component under DHS. You all are on a tear over there as far as cloud implementation solutions.
Yes, thanks for inviting me to this forum. Just like you mentioned, Luke, TSA was the original, agency that was stood up post September 11th event, as part of the Aviation Transportation Security Act. Before we dive into where we are, people need to understand that TSA is a multimodal, complex environment. People think of it as an aviation airport type thing. It's surface, the rail, the mass transit, the maritime, the pipeline. It has a lot of interagency dependency. What we do know is we not only have IT as an informational technology, we also have operational technology that we need to take a look at and consider when we are designing and progressing with any kind of a cloud computing programs. Mission always drives our IT. So you mentioned about cloud smart strategy in 2018. We align ourselves very much with our mothership, the DHS as our agency, and then we try to mimic many of their cloud strategy and follow their procurement strategy. Initially the 2018 cloud smart strategy was majorly focusing on security standardization, procurement streamlining, and application rationalization and cost optimization. We took those strategy and further developed on how do we get out of some of these data centers? How do we minimize our footprints? But then we realized that the hybrid cloud strategy needs to be very well understood. We just can't simply move some of this mission, high value assets or mission critical system into cloud without having to prove it. So we took that step, right? Initially, we had cloud first based on our cloud smart strategy from DHS, but we also said, hey, how about SaaS first? Because it was a natural progression of Microsoft Azure and some of these SaaS technology. The COVID period really accelerated our thinking in how we need to progress with the cloud. So I think COVID was, on one hand, it's a double-edged sword. It stopped us from a lot of what we were doing, but then it opened our eyes to, hey, remote work and how do we, accelerate that. 2022 to 24, which is, part of the new CIO's IT strategy. We saw a tremendous industry's best practices to be, applied to. Just like most of our colleagues here, multi-cloud architecture, avoiding vendor lock-in, best of the breed services selection. Security and compliance took a big front role, the zero trust architecture implementation right up front, which also means cloud native security controls. FinOps and cost management, no agency is operating without, having some kind of a budget cut. We are looking at the real-time cost monitoring and optimization. The other one that I'm responsible personally for is speed to impact, which basically means DevSecOps integration. We are implementing across the board, some of the infrastructure as a code, continuous integration, continuous deployment, automated security testings, container orchestration, microservices orchestration. The other thing you might have heard is the data strategy. It's all about data. How do we enable the data-driven decision-making to the end users? So our data governance framework, the ETL, ELT type of pipeline automation, data mesh strategy is the basic now, our focus on how do we implement the cloud and how do we make that data available. Operational excellence is another part of it. The other thing we have done through the new CIO offices initiative is a very close collaboration with OT. That means, bringing in innovation, right? That means, I think one of my colleagues had mentioned, how do we enable their user accounts, rapid prototyping capability, serverless computing, edge compute computation. You might have heard about, touchless and other things. So governance and control is something that the CIO office has put in. And lastly, I would like to say center of excellence. Workforce development is absolutely important. Our focus is right now on, hey, you can outsource some of the doings, but don't outsource the knowledge. Sure. So that's where our focus is. So
a lot of good activity going on there, and we